Let's go straight to Jonathan Powell. The deal, from what we understand, is being unilaterally offered. Certainly it sounded as if the EU as a body haven't seen it. Do you think this can be well received from what you've read and heard so far?
If the deal in the Daily Telegraph is indeed what they're putting forward, and I assume since it's Boris Johnson's newspaper it is accurate since it's been briefed there, it's a variant of the deal offered yesterday that was exposed by the leaks yesterday. In other words, it's imposing a hard border in Northern Ireland, just the opposite of what we promised at the beginning of this negotiation with the EU. It's not therefore going to be acceptable to the EU, it's not going to be acceptable in Northern Ireland to the majority of the population, and it's not going to be acceptable in the Republic of Ireland. It is not a serious proposal, and presumably what they're doing is simply trying to avoid a deal to get to no deal, as we've always assumed they were going to do. This is the final confirmation, that's their aim.
You think this is a political strategy to get Brussels to reject something that allows for no deal?
It's about the blame game, trying to blame Brussels for this, and I think the quote from Dominic Cummings in the Daily Telegraph story, where he says we're going to offer it to them once and then walk away and not negotiate, suggests that's exactly what their aim is, yes.
So just help us to understand this, because Boris Johnson said that he said there'd be no infrastructure, it would be absolutely minimal and unobtrusive. So his understanding of a hard deal is not the same as yours.
He said today...
A hard border, sorry.
When he denied the leaks from last night, which appear to be correct, in fact, I'm surprised, he said that the proposals there last night were wrong. Actually, what he's proposing is exactly the same thing. That there will be, he confirmed in the interviews today, a customs border in Northern Ireland. And of course, there has to be a customs border.
He didn't say customs border, did he?
He did.
He said
in the interviews earlier today.
He said customs checks, which is not the same.
The first interview he gave today, he talked about customs border. He said that the United Kingdom as a whole is leaving the customs union, that therefore has to be a customs border. He said that.
So what could that mean then? Just help us understand, because it's all to do with this understanding of infrastructure. Is a camera infrastructure, is that a border?
A customs border can be made up of many different things, and it can be put in different places. It can be patrols, it could be infrastructure like cameras, it could be border checks, it could be border check yards back behind border. Whatever unobtrusive. The point of this is not how long it takes a lorry to cross the border in Northern Ireland. That is not the issue. The issue is identity. The Good Friday Agreement tried to solve the issue of identity by allowing people in Northern Ireland to live there and feel Irish or feel British or feel both. If you put in a customs border, as you have to if they leave the customs union, then that will be destroyed.
Is there anything coherent in what you're seeing here that would lead us to a Brexit deal by the end of October?
No, it looks to me very much like something that's been put forward by someone who is not serious at reaching a deal, that actually intends to leave without a deal. Even the idea of putting this in 4 years' time to a vote at Stormont is not serious. Firstly, Stormont doesn't exist, hasn't existed for the last 2 years, no particular prospect of getting it up and running. If you put it to Stormont, Stormont is ruled by cross-community consensus. It would have to be approved by both Sinn Féin and the DUP. And as we know, there's no prospect of that happening. It's simply a way of avoiding any of this ever being agreed. It's a scam, really.
So when Nicky Morgan said that these alternative arrangements are being explored because there is confidence that they can work, is that magic?
It's nonsense. This not only couldn't work, it is not ever going to be acceptable to the EU, to the Irish government or to the majority of the population in Northern Ireland. It is just a pretence that they're putting forward a proposal. To say it's a new deal is absolute nonsense.
What do you think is in store then for the island of Ireland?
What I worry about is we're going to have a hard Brexit, a no-deal Brexit, which will lead to a border having to be imposed in Northern Ireland. The Irish government said earlier that they would try not to impose one straight away if the UK leaves without a deal, but will have to. They'll have to bring one in because the rest of the EU won't accept a gaping back door to the EU. So it will gradually be introduced and will create huge problems in Northern Ireland and should much best be avoided. This whole nonsense about getting Brexit done, the idea that a no-deal Brexit gets Brexit done is ridiculous. It actually takes the negotiations much longer. It will take another 10 years to negotiate. If we go out, we will no longer be negotiating under Article 50. We'll be negotiating as a foreign country with the EU, and we'll have to negotiate on the Irish border as the first step.
Jonathan Powell, thank you very much indeed.